No. Hello and welcome to Rugby Chat, brought to you by DrivingMaul. I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, a blog, a podcast, Twitter and YouTube channel, bringing you the best in rugby predictions and opinion. Don't forget to subscribe on your favourite podcasting app so we drop into your phone every week, and also please leave us a 5-star review. Other stars are available, but why would you want to do that, hey? If you'd like to watch what happens behind the covers, the show's live on YouTube at 8 PM New Zealand time every Tuesday. And you can also join the discussion on our 5 questions via Twitter. Just follow at DrivingMaul and look out for the questions and use #RugbyChat. Joining me this week is no other than Steve from Cornflakes Crib, one of the best rugby computer games, Twitter channels, YouTube channels. Happy New Year, sir. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back. Good to be back. It's been a while since I've been here, and it's been a while since I've seen any of yours as well. So happy New Year to all them out there in the DrivingMaul land.
Yes, well, let's be fair. This is the first one of the new year. Hence, we're going to look forward and have all our New Year's resolutions and all of that kind of lovely stuff as well. This week, we'll be talking about the All Blacks, women in rugby, and rugby predictions for 2018. So a bunch of stuff. And let's get straight into the questions. What's your rugby prediction for 2018? And I left it wide open for you, didn't I, earlier? And then I went and had a bunch of categories in. Did you spot that?
I did. I did. I actually did a little bit of research, a tiny bit, but I didn't really predict anything because I looked at what you got and I thought, I'll just do this as I go. You've got Super Rugby. That's probably the big thing from what New Zealand viewership or from the All Blacks down, really. Super Rugby. Predictions on that, I think it's going to be kind of like last year. You're going to see the New Zealand teams will be probably up there with the best of them. Australia are going to continue to struggle. And I'm going to be hopeful that South Africa are going to do better than they did. Argentina, Japan, Sunwolves, Pug Warriors, hopefully much better from them as well this year. Don't see them going to really change the competition at all. But I think it's going to be similar to last year. And we're going to talk more about Australia, I think, later on as well. You've got that in the later on question. So I'll pick on them later on. But, yeah, that's overall, I think it's going to be much the same. I think teams are going to be pretty hard to beat, the Hurricanes, Crusaders, teams like those. So that's my pick for that. The French Tour of New Zealand you've got next up. It's hard. It's hard.
It's not all just about you,
Oh, I was going to go through all of them. Okay, where you go?
You're going to go through all of them? I was going to do one at a time. So we went through all that hassle last year of all of those changes.
Waste of time. Do you want to start on that? Do you want to go down there?
I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole just yet. We'll jump to that at the end. Oh dear, it must be. It's hard to look beyond the New Zealand sides and looking at them, you've got to say again, Crusaders, because they've got pretty much the same team. You've also and the same also with the Hurricanes, Highlanders. Could they do it for Lima's last season as a send off? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it's going to be between those three. The Chiefs, having lost Cruden, forget it. I think it's going to take a while for Mackenzie to get his feet there. But actually, for them, it's a new 8-9-10 combination because they've lost Leach to Sunwolves. They've lost Kerbalo to Europe, and they've lost Cruden to Europe. So they've got a new 8-9-10 axis. So that's going to be difficult for them. And finally, the Blues. Well, yes.
Come on.
the mighty Blues, the winners of the second most ever Super Rugby titles, is it probably?
Yeah.
But it has been like probably over a decade since they've actually won one.
For the Crusaders too, is just about getting up to that sort of time as well, since they last won one before last year. So anything's possible, but unlikely, isn't it? Really,
it is. So it's going to be down to those three again, and as you say, for all the messing around we've done with the format, I don't. If anything, it's going to actually favour the New Zealand sides as they don't.
Actually put the Highlanders in contention in your top three, or were you talking about the Chiefs?
Oh, Highlanders ahead of the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs having having a brand new 8-9-10 axis, it's going to take time to settle down. Sure, Brad Weber is a good player, but he was injured all last season. You got McKenzie in a new position, and Messam will fill it in at 8, I guess, or with Leach gone. But then again, he has to play every single game, and let's be honest, he's not the youngest fella anymore. So with that new combination, and with having removed that depth in those 3 positions, I think you got to say that they're going to take a while to settle down.
Talking about Super Rugby, the threat from overseas. What do you think about the Lions this year? All the changes, everything going on there. Do you think it's going to be any threat from South Africa this year?
Well, the thing that South Africa and Australia have got is they've both got a long haul flight within their group, whereas New Zealand haven't. New Zealand got five teams in New Zealand, not that far to go. South Africa has to go all the way over to Argentina. Australia have to go all the way up to Japan. Obviously, South Africa's got the longest one there. So I think losing Ackerman is going to be a big loss to them. I have heard people say that actually perhaps the new coach is a better coach than Ackerman is, but perhaps not as good a man manager. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But I think they have to do it this year, because I think we're going to see a lot of players leave at the end of the season and move on. So I think this is, yes, they're going to top. They should top the South African group, but I don't think they'll get past the semi-finals.
Well, you got an argument straight away in the comments from Donovan, who reckons that Stormers are going to be the best South African team this year. So it's got a few points. They've been pretty decent last year in patches. Definitely not on the road, but in patches. So I think South Africa could be an interesting season in their little division. Outside of it, probably not.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's going to be interesting. And next week we are going to concentrate on the African Conference, and I have got a guest dialing in from South Africa as well. So it's going to be interesting to get his take. The week after, we will have a look at the Australian Conference, and then the week after that, we'll look at the New Zealand Conference. So we'll go into depth in each of those over the next 3 weeks. I think everything's pointing to this being preferable for the New Zealand sides. As you say, the Lions, maybe the Stormers, out of even though I have got a mate who's from the Sharks, and he reckons they're coming through as well, having done a youth policy, and that they're growing in the same way the Lions did a few years ago. So we'll see how what they so I say we'll get into that in more detail next week. But I think no. So France June tour to New Zealand.
Well, I mean, this one's hard to see going anywhere for me other than just All Blacks winning again. It's back to normalcy. I mean, I guess the same probably talk about later, but the whole All Black season as a whole, I think there's going to be one thing that they'll target, which is England, of course, obviously. It's going to be the World Cup final of the season, as you'd probably call it. But, I mean, France, they just don't travel that well here, do they normally? I mean, you could say the World Cup final here, but that was the anomaly. I don't think they're going to cause too much trouble. But it could be an interesting series. So France is always that nemesis side, but I still think the All Blacks will come out on top 3-0. You could be patriotic if you work, but yeah, it's just how those kind of mid-year tours go, isn't it? They always seem to be quite, are the All Blacks going to be up to speed straight away in the season? And then they come out like the Lions, smash out of the blocks, do really well, and then she kind of flatlines for the rest of the season. So I think it'll be a good series, but I expect the All Blacks to win that one and kind of, go in a targeting direction of that tour and England, obviously.
Yeah, no, and I guess you've really covered the Rugby Championship there as well, haven't you? I think that the All Blacks are going to stroll that French tour. Basically, France won't have their full squad for the first game because they'll still be playing the top 14 final, and then that'll go on. And have you heard about the coaching changes in France though, and their innovative new way of doing this? You could shake of the head. So
go on. I've heard something, but I don't know if it's the same thing you've heard. So
they've gone and sacked their coach, and they've brought in another coach who didn't really do much with Italy when he was over there. Even though he said at the beginning that his goal was to win the Six Nations with Italy, and yes, he never really got anywhere near that, did he? Let's be honest. But basically, he is the assistant coach, or he was the assistant coach to the current CEO of French Rugby. So when the CEO of French Rugby was the French national coach, this guy was the assistant coach. So yes, it's jobs for the boys. Basically, you can see why he's got the role. And then to appoint his assistant coaches, he hasn't appointed any. What he's going to do is he's going to borrow top 14 coaches on a rotation basis to be his assistant coaches.
Oh dear, that never works out. Hiring mates with jobs like that, it never really ever works out. It just makes everyone look really, really bad. But that is a creative way to get an assistant coaches. I'll give them that. I mean, France is the sort of team that can come out before. I don't want to say that unpredictability because they're not like that anymore, but they're the sort of team that if they're given the drive to do something or the passion, or they've got something, to kind of fire them up, they could be a team that could come here and cause some trouble. But I mean, if there's some turmoil going on at the top, then it's it doesn't look too good for them.
No, I think it's going to be a disaster year for them. And all we can hope for really heading towards the Rugby World Cup is that they have a player revolt in the months leading up to the Rugby World Cup, and the players just take over and they actually have a run where they're together. I mean, basically what happened in 2011 when they were here, the players had a revolt and basically told the coach to go away. We'll do the game plan. I think that's basically what their best hope is for next year. In 2019. So, but yeah, I
don't mind if France had a bad World Cup, to be honest.
It's all pointing that way, and and this is, I guess, we're going to get onto wishes if we're not careful here. But World Rugby needs. I just wish we would have a strong Wallabies, strong Pumas, strong French team. It needs these big countries to be strong. To finance the game, really, more than anything else. So I'm a bit worried if we do lose France down the club route, in the same way that sort of football has gone, is at the start of the decline of international rugby, and it's all down to club rugby instead. That'd be a very sad thing to see. So, predictions for Mitre 10 Cup. Can anyone unseat the Canterbury and stop them from doing it back to back again?
I kind of want to say go the Stags, but I'm not going to embarrass myself like that. Unlikely, isn't it? I'd like to see what Wellington can do backing up from last season. They look pretty strong. But Canterbury is just such a ridiculously good core talent of players everywhere, aren't they? They just keep rolling them out. It's kind of like New Zealand rugby as a whole is the way Canterbury works at that level. It's always good to see the Mitre 10 Cup because you get new players. You get these little teams outside the big stages that actually do perform, like Tasmans and one or two on that. It's good that it's on an even level, but they'll all fight it out to make a final. But yeah, it's hard to see anyone knocking Canterbury over at any stage this season.
Yeah, I think it's. In fact, I'm going to go the other way here. Actually, I'm going to predict Auckland get relegated because I think this is they came close last season. And you've got to say, from the Championship, it's hard to see past Waikato. You've got to say a Super Rugby team in the Championship, or Super Rugby region in the Championship, should come straight back up. The why Wellington didn't is pretty much a disgrace that it took them so long to get back up, to be honest. And you've got to say Waikato have got to be favourites to come to bounce straight back up into the Premiership, I think, on that side of things. Couple of more. We've got time for a couple more predictions. Who will leave next out of the All Blacks, do you think?
Throw a coin and a dice and see what comes up. Who knows? Who does Europe want the most? Is probably the bigger question. Who's number 4 or 5 on the buy list? They seem to have pretty good luck at the moment picking out those fringe guys. So that's probably their best thing. Older players who just aren't quite fulfilling probably what they want to do. But I couldn't name someone. Who knows? It could be anyone. But it's all right. We've got others that will back up. I'm sure we'll talk about that later on. But yeah, who knows? In French, I'd say someone on the bench, a Sopawanga sort of players like we just seen. Guys, like Messams, you talked about him already. Players like him, just not quite, that indispensable guy. Because very rarely anyone leaves when we've got the jersey like right there. It's theirs. You know, they've got that number, whatever, every week. They're the indispensable player. Those guys you're not going to get unless they're calling it a day. The guys that are not quite making it, not breaking in, they're the ones that are probably going to get enough, you know, to turn over if they coin is right for him.
Well, Kano, we know he's going. He's off to Toulon as a to replace the South African guy who is heading back home. And my prediction, Naholo.
Well, you reckon? Why?
Why? If we look at the last couple of guys who have gone, so Fekitoa, Lima Sofuaga, some of these, the guys with the Islander background who've got the bigger families to support, generally will go for the cash. So I think that's part of it. So culturally, I think providing for your big family is one of those things. Also, he isn't nailed on as a first choice winger. There's quite a few. There's a lot of competition there, so that's why I think he might be one to go for the cash. He very nearly went before the last World Cup, but came back, but managed to get. Sorry,
Golden leaves.
Golden leaves.
Yeah, they've come back from his injury. Yeah.
Oh no! He actually signed for another club, didn't he? He'd signed
around that time, wasn't it? Same time.
He'd signed for a French club just before the Rugby World Cup, and would have missed the Rugby World Cup, but they managed to get them to renege, to cancel the contract and to come back. So I think, yeah, I think there's a chance someone like him, maybe. We've already because Moala's going. As you say, those fringe good. Another one of those fringe sort of centres who was there. So Tamanavalu is another one of those guys who's in that kind of fringe roles that might go. I'd throw money at someone like Anton at Brown. I know he wouldn't go, but that'd be great. If I was a European club, I'm talking about backs here because backs are always easier to see than forwards who are always stuck in just a big pile of bodies.
Yeah, that's true. I couldn't see Leonard Brown going. I think he's got a big future, too big a future. That's what I mean. He's got too much riding on him to go away. Forwards are hard to tell because it's pretty cutthroat. Oh, the whole team's pretty cutthroat, but I mean, forwards just can't really tell just so much. One injury, they can make a big blockbuster sort of thing. So I couldn't see. You're doing well to name players, but I see your point. Naholo is a pretty good shout. And anyone could go, but it's all right. We've got plenty more.
Oh well, we'll get on to that. I was going to say your biggest controversy, your biggest bugbear of the season. So last season, clearly it was the Super Rugby structure. What do you think is going to be the big thing people are going to rant about this year?
Same thing. Same thing, no question about it. I've looked at it. It's no different. People are going to rave about this year is going to be the fact that Australia still get a quarter-final spot, a final spot, let's call it, without actually, beating any of the best teams in the competition. Same thing. Oh dear, sad. I think it's going to be headshots and concussion. We've already seen that in Europe. There's been a lot of controversy around red cards and the consistency in refereeing of headshots and where the red cards are. Because, hey, red cards are always a big thing. And I think that's going to be, you're going to see some that are going to get away with nothing and some guys who are going to get a red card. And I think that's going to cause a whole bunch of controversy. That's what people are going to shout about on that's going to be our social media. Twitter storms are going to be around, rants are going to be around that, I think. It's like the opposite of me last season. I was raving on about having a yellow and red cards there, where everyone else is going on about Super Rugby. I'm going to switch it up this year. I'm not going to ruin it because that's my wish for the next year. It's not going to happen, but yep, I'm going to switch it up.
Oh, okay. So question 2, what is the impact of Sofuaga leaving and is it a sign of players leaving earlier and younger?
I don't think it's a sign. I don't think much has really changed. If its impact, it hurts the depth a little bit, but I think there's plenty more out there. I mean, I think you're probably going to see the likes of Richie Mwanga will just slot straight into his spot, into the fringe. And of course, you still got the whole McKenzie thing, which they seem persistently desperate to put him in at 10. You're going to see that carry on as well. It's going to hurt the depth. It could come back to haunt them this season, you know, if there's some injuries at 10. But I mean, overall scale sort of things, everyone's looking at next year when the World Cup's on. And as long as there's, you know, fit guys at 10, then that's all it's going to matter. You're going to have 2 years to get these guys up to speed, get them trained up in the plays. So it'll just, the cogs will keep on turning. And it's like, he's gone, someone else will come in, and it's another opportunity for another player to take the place. As for players leaving, I think it's just going to continue on. I don't think it's going to be a mass exodus. I mean, look at the so-called mass exodus of the last World Cup. It didn't matter, did it? It didn't really change anything. It was all older guys. It was all expected.
Post Rugby World Cup, there is always an older guy.
Yeah, but it's not. It doesn't change the game though.
So you don't think it's players leaving it? I mean, have a quick look at the guys who have been capped since had their first new cap since 2012, and players that would have gone to the Rugby World Cup. So you've got obviously Liam Sopwanga would have gone. You've also got Charlie Fuamaina would have gone to the Rugby World Cup, I think. Keir Barlow would have gone to the Rugby World Cup, and possibly Pierre Tau. So I think it's 4 players there who have left who would have gone to the Rugby World Cup.
And none of them would have started in the starting 15 of a decent Test match.
No, but I think 3 of them could have made the 23. So I think you've got Charlie. I think you might have had Charlie, Pierre Tau, and Lima on the bench in your first choice 23.
But in 2 years' time, how would you know that Richie Mwanga, for example, if he was there, could develop into a just as good, if not better, player in that situation? I mean, it's not like we're calling up me to fly out for the Highlanders this season. The drop in quality is just not that.
It's not as much as going down to Beaver, you mean?
Well, I mean, it's always an option, isn't it? He's gone, isn't he? I think he's playing in Japan.
No. He's going to play for Ulster in Ireland.
Oh, he's going back overseas. Overseas just does not work for him. He should not go overseas ever again. He should just stay here in Waikato, play a coach for the Chiefs. That's all he needs to do. He needs to keep it simple. You're not a fan. Come on.
He left. Well, no. I mean, okay. Because he left Waikato, and from what I hear, that wasn't necessarily totally happy. I think they wanted him to stay in Waikato, but he left Waikato and went to play for Counties. So I got to see him a couple of times. He has his legs. It's like he's running. It's like kind of a puppet running. They've got the weirdest running style. So no, he's to be flipped. He's past it now.
He's going to be around forever. He's never going to retire. He's just going to be that guy, always the backup, the ultimate backup. Come on, 3 minutes left, kick a goal, win the title. That's the legacy of Stephen Donald forever.
Oh, I can't. It is legacy. But he got so lucky. He went from being basically the most hated man in New Zealand for missing touch in Hong Kong to being a national hero, a cult hero. It's a great story.
His career took off after that too. Like that game against Wales, I'll never forget that.
He went to Bath and then just was awful.
Yeah.
He did nothing at Bath. As you say, don't go overseas, mate. Stay here where you've got your
Come play for Stags.
Where you got your cult heroes.
We've lost Lima. We need Donald back.
I think there's a bit of a trend of some of these guys going a bit earlier than they used to, and I think we're going to see an increase of that. Actually, looking at this list of people who have played, Julian Sevilla is the obvious guy actually who's the next to go, who basically isn't going to get another All Blacks cap. Whenever his contract comes up for renewal, they're going to pay him a lot less, and he's going to go overseas. That's the one I missed out. The fact that New Zealand have kept hold of Todd and Crotty, to me, has been amazing. You got 2 guys there who have been knocking on the door for so long. I'm amazed they didn't go overseas for their money. But they have stuck around, and now they might get the reward about going to a World Cup.
It depends on the personality, doesn't it? The personality and what drives them to succeed in the game. Like you talked about the Islanders, like nothing against that, that personality or that family-orientated person, or however you describe it. But that's their drive. It's family and supplying and that sort of thing. Whereas for players, Crotty, Todd, like you mentioned, their drive will be something completely different. Family is important, but top level is that's their goal. That's their drive to play. And like a lot of those island players come to New Zealand to play rugby to help their families. That's the goal. But
also, as you say, there's not an expectation on them to provide for the wider provide for the wider family.
Mm-hmm.
They've not got people phoning up and saying, "Hey, such and such has had a bike accident. Can you please help with medical bills?" They've not got such. Hey, your third cousin's having a wedding. Come on, you've got to come and do your bit. And that they don't have the same pressures, and of those guys as well. To be fair, so cool. On to question 3. What's your Rugby New Year wish for 2018? Now, this is not a prediction. You can go totally out there. What would you love to see happen this season?
Well, it's not going, no chance at all of it happening. But what I would like to see is the Southern Kings of 2017 come back to Super Rugby for 2018. The same team, that same squad, come back for this year. The same exciting team, the underdog, the ultimate team from nowhere, the excitement machine. They were a great side. I think from recent history, that's the team I'd most like to see and found to be able to support those guys. I'd love to see them come back, build on what they did last year too, have that opportunity to keep that squad and, build on it and go the next season because they were pretty good. And I just think it's disappointing. No, and the same goes to the leaders and the Force and all that as well. The Kings, they're close to the heart. So that would be my wish. If I could change anything, it would be the Kings come back, win Super Rugby in 2020.
It would have been lovely if they'd kept that squad together, wouldn't it? They may have actually done something in the Pro 14 in the same way that Cheetahs are doing. Cheetahs won nearly all their home games. In the Pro 14, the Kings haven't even won a game.
I think they got 2 players from that squad last year. Something tiny anyway.
The entire squad has got disbanded and they had to build a squad in 2 weeks. Well, maybe a couple more weeks than 2 weeks, but they basically, by the time they were building a squad, everyone was signed, and that was a problem. My wishes. I mean, we already talked about wishing that we could have the old stronger international game with your South Africa Wallabies, Springboks Wallabies and France all being strong again. I'd love that. My other wish, players, stop play acting. I don't want, if you stay down and play hurt, just go off the pitch. That's a bit, sorry, you stretchered. If you roll around on the ground trying to get someone yellow carded or a penalty, off you go. I've had enough of it. You substitute yourself off because, no more play acting because we're seeing too much of that now. And scrum halves, shut the beep up. Stop waving your arms in the air. Put your arms down where you can pick the ball up and play the game. Don't wave hands going, referee. No, that's not what we want to see. We want to see your hands down on the ball, passing the ball quickly and getting on with the game. So there you go. There's my bugbears around rugby culture.
None of them are going to happen.
None of them are going to happen. Absolutely
Kings
right.
are more likely than your 2. Jeez.
The other one, coaches to stop blaming referees.
Michael Checker?
Exactly. Checker, shut up. There's a proper feedback process for you to feedback. You give your feedback on coaches. Going through the media is not the way to do it. I've had enough of that. Stop it. You're all bad people.
I'd like to see more tier 2 countries playing in the top tier as well. Teams that are up and coming. Georgia. We will talk about it as well. More top level games with Georgia and Japan. They get some as well. But teams like Georgia, Romania, stuff like that. It'll be good to see them playing a lot more in the top league. Bit of a wish.
Well, come 2020, you're going to get that. So Romania and Georgia will get a home test match against a tier 1 nation every June. So one of basically they'll get Scotland or Italy. To be fair, because England and France will be going off to their big lucrative tours, but they're going to get a home, and I think that's I read an article about what the Pacific Islands need about 2 years ago now, and it was about getting those home test matches on a regular basis, because without that, they can't grow their own funds. They can't build the commercial networks they need And without those funds, they're never going to be able to hold on to their players, never be able to develop players or develop coaches, etc. So yeah, those home games. So those two sides are going to get them. Actually, that's another one. Can people stop banging on about how great Georgia are until they beat a tier 1 team? Ever. Japan are miles ahead of Georgia. They drew with France last November. They've beaten the Springboks at the Rugby World Cup. Georgia have never beaten a tier 1 team.
They're a lot more exposed to it, though, Japan.
Perhaps they get a couple more games, yeah, but not that many more than Georgia, really.
Bar Rugby World Cup, no one plays from tier 1 plays Georgia.
They get one November test each year, just like Japan do.
Yeah, but Japan get it. Oh, yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Japan might get one or two more each World Cup cycle, but still, everyone's talking about that Georgia are so much better than Italy. Well, they've never actually beaten Italy.
I don't think people consider Japan to be down that sort of level. I think people consider Japan to be up the with or not above the likes of an Italy sort of team. But I think Georgia, Romania, they're considered to be quite a bit lower.
I think a lot of people are considering Georgia to be the best tier 2 team and trying to get Georgia into the Six Nations.
You're not going to get Japan into the mate.
You're not going to get Japan into the no, but when's Japan going to be in the Rugby Championship?
Nah, not the way Argentina's going.
The problem with Argentina is they won't select overseas players, and they have a great team in Europe. To be fair to Japan, Japan does not have a great team in Europe. Japan have one or two players in Europe. All of their players are available to them. They either play in Super Rugby, Super Rugby, or domestically. I think Gamora is the only player that doesn't. I don't know if he's still at Toulon or not, but maybe there's one or two players in Europe, and that's about it. Whereas I say Argentina have got probably a whole squad in Europe, and that's the difference. Is that Japan have access to all their players, whereas Argentina don't join the Rugby Championship.
I think Argentina would still thrash them though, if they were in the end. I think the way that Argentina, despite all the player things, I think if they tried to add Japan now, there would be quite a bit of a backlash about how Argentina hasn't worked, regardless of player situations. Would be a big stopper on that.
Yeah, it's interesting that actually in Europe we're not getting that. It's not people want Georgia in and Italy out. It's not like, look, Italy's failed. You know what? Georgia's also going to fail. Italy at least beat most of the six nations, or most of the 5 nation teams before they got in. Whereas Georgia haven't beaten any tier 1 nations ever.
And probably needs like a relegation, like a lot of people say too. You want to take Italy, beat Italy.
Yeah, and I think actually they're going to play each other. I think they're lined up for next November or in June. So they are actually going to play each other soon, which is going to this year, I think, from memory. So that's going to be interesting to see how that goes, because Georgia are ranked higher than Italy, but they play easier opposition, so they win all their games. Whereas Italy play hard opposition and lose all their games to get in their ranking points. So it's not a perfect guide as to who is better than who. So it's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, that game's going to be interesting for that year. So yes, I wish the Pacific Islands had more of a chance and had more games, but they don't, unfortunately. Okay then, Ricky Swannell's Sky commentary appointment. Does this show that the old boys' bubble has burst?
That's an interesting way to say the name.
Is it?
They call her Swannell.
Swannell, do they? Oh, okay.
Listen here. Right, what was I saying about this? Has there bubble burst? I don't think so. The thing that concerns me about this, and it goes for all the TV kind of places as well, is as long as they're doing it for the right reasons, that's the best person for the job, they're going to do the best job at it. I don't care whether you're woman, man, black, white, orange, pink, green, purple, what you eat, what you don't eat, how many times you sleep a day, anything like that, as long as it's good when you do the job. It's entertaining. You know what you're talking about. It flows. It's comfortable and easy to listen to, and what makes you more involved in the match. That's the big thing for me. What sex you are, anything like that, doesn't worry me. But it's just the fact that you see quite a lot of these television things trying to do this. Some, sure, they work out quite well, but some do seem like they're forcing it in where it probably isn't working too well. Like even like Big Bash in Australia, I've been watching quite a bit of that. They have a woman commentator doing that as well. She seems pretty good. Can't really complain about that. So as long as you can watch it, still be entertained, still follow the game, and feel like you're involved with the game, then that's fine by me. It's just do a good job and have the right person doing it, not just because she's female.
Yeah, someone I've never heard of. I had to Google her, which I know amazes you because she's all over. So I mean, she's done netball, international netball, tennis, commentary, rowing, part of the Olympics coverage, Commonwealth Games coverage, all this kind of stuff, Cricket World Cup. What I don't see is anything or much to do with rugby. To me, and that's my only concern is that she's a great netball, tennis, or cricket commentator. That doesn't make you a good rugby commentator. So that's my only concern. Is it does she have a rugby background personally? Otherwise, not really that fussed. I do like the fact that Portia Woodman has been. We've seen her on post sort of the round tables, post game chats. I think that's very positive. I think getting some of those Black Ferns and recently retired Black Ferns involved would be really good. Personally, to spread that word. And the Black Ferns had a fantastic season last season. Let's be honest. So personally, it would be good to see them come through. But I mean, there are a few other things about this about the women's rugby and women in rugby. So have been good because obviously Raylene, I'm going to butcher her name, her first name, Castle, is now the chief executive of Australian Rugby, for example. So it seems that and she was brought in, and her competition was Phil Kearns, who is very much an old boy and part of the establishment.
That would have been terrible.
I agree, would have been terrible. I don't believe he's got any sports administration background at all. They needed to bring in a sports administrator, and that is what she is. She's headed up netball, she's headed up rugby league. Now, rugby league team. Now, I don't follow rugby league, but I hear she left the Bulldogs under a bit of a cloud, and she's not maybe, and so, but still, I think it's good they've got a proper administrator in there, not an old boy rugby guy, which says Australia, I think, moving the right way. To be fair to Pulver, he did one of the things that has come out since he left is the women's sevens in Australia are going to get paid the same as the men's sevens. And one of the things that Steve too said when one of his things was that the women are treated the same as the men in the New Zealand sevens. Now, I don't know if that means they get the same pay or not. I hope so. But he said they get the same support. So it looks like, to me, I think there's a lot of positive things happening here around those, especially around the sevens side of things. And yeah, I've got no problem with her with Ricky getting appointed. I'm just not sure about her rugby background because I've never heard of her before.
Well, it goes both ways, doesn't it? You can have the person with all the experience in the world, like Phil Kearns, for example, or Justin Marshall. People hate Justin Marshall with a passion, and he's one of the most experienced guys, going around. All the test matches he played, matches coming out his nose, he played that many matches. Whether you think he's good or not doesn't really matter. The fact is, you can still be experienced and know what you're talking about, but you have to be able to deliver it in a way that it captures people's interest and informs them in a way that they understand it and can relate with, so that they find it interesting. So the experience she does have with actually doing the whole commentary, sports side of things is always positive. And I guess at the end of the day, that's why you've got the likes of Justin Marshalls and that. They're the super experts that win stuff. She's just probably going to say what's out there. She's a New Zealander. She knows, most people do the basics of rugby. So positive, yeah. It should go well. But she should have a lot to learn. But it's for the right reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, Justin Marshall doesn't do the role that she's going to do. She's doing the play-by-play. He provides he's the expert compared to the commentator, kind of in the box. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. We'll see how she goes. Wish her good luck. So moving on to our final question, but not actually going to be our final discussion point because someone brought something up just before the show. What was the point of shutting down the Force? Now, we did say we were going to get into this, didn't we? So the Rugby Roundup, which is another podcast and a Twitter thing based out of Australia, but by a couple of Kiwis, put together a good slide that showed where have the players gone from the Force. Now, so I'll just give you a quick rundown for this. The Brumbies have got 3 players from the Force. The Waratahs have got 3 players from the Force. 7 players have headed overseas. 3, 6, 7, about 10 or 12 or so have retired or unsigned. The Reds have taken nobody, so I don't know what's going on at the Reds. And the Rebels have got about 12 players. So the whole point of reducing it was supposed to be to bring up the level and increase the quality in all the squads. So if you're going to have 3 players go to the Brumbies, 3 players go to the Waratahs, no one goes to the Reds, and then basically half the squad or all the good players go to the Rebels, what was the point?
There was no point, was there, really? I still don't see the point to it now. There's less opportunity now in Australia, isn't there, I think, for players to come up because you've got less spots. What I get surprised me the most is the unsigned players list. And you've got quite a few players in there that would actually be quite good in a lot of teams. You know, players like Pete Cowan, I'm pretty sure he's played for the Wallabies, hasn't he? Unless he's retired, but he's on that list anyway. There's a few others. Cottrell, Hodgson is retired, I know that for sure. McCalman, Marcel Bracchi. I thought he would go back to South Africa or something like that. But a lot of players have a lot of talent. I don't see the point in it at all. And that's saying I'm going to be talking about soon on a video to plug myself. Is what exactly has changed in Super Rugby this season. You've chopped teams. They're going to have less player exposure to the teams or countries that need it. And yet you've not really helped them out at all because now the Rebels are just flooded with players who are probably just going to get less game time. I can see from that list you're going to get Haylett Petty is probably going to play a bit. Ben Daly at the Rebels. It's hard to see too much of them really making a splash there when they could have done it at the Force already themselves. I don't see the point. Enlighten me. What's the point?
I agree. I think Bill McCalman actually on that unsigned list is going to get signed by somebody in Australia. I think he's still in talks. John O'Lance at the Rebels, he's gone off and he went and played for Worcester Warriors in the Aviva Premiership for a few games. So I can see him coming back and being the pivot at the Rebels. Everyone's followed the old coach, haven't they? That's what's happened. Is the Forces coach has gone over to the Rebels and he's basically taken his team with him rather than having to build from scratch. And that makes a lot of sense. If you've got a team that's doing well, a bunch of guys who know each other, play well together, keep them together. And the Force were playing well, but the Rebels weren't. And basically, Australian Rugby couldn't afford to scrap Rebels. That's what it came down to. They couldn't afford. They could afford to scrap the Force monetarily wise. They weren't going to get taken to court and sued in the same way as the Rebels would have done. And that's basically what it's come down to. What I think should have happened is Argentina should have joined the New Zealand conference. The Sunwolves should have joined the Australian conference, and South Africa should have kept with 6 teams. Is how it should have done, and we should have kept the same number of teams, but structure it into 3 conferences of 6 teams, so it was even. How the the winners of each one, and then the next best X teams make it into the playoffs, and then everyone can understand it pretty easily. But if you've got some groups of 4 and some groups of 5, and 5 of the teams come from 2 of the groups, and 3 of the teams come from 2 of the other groups, it's confusing. I get why they simplified it. I don't get why they got rid of teams. Apparently, it came down to New Zealand refused to travel to Argentina for games. They just didn't want that extra travel. And Argentina refused to be in a conference where they would always come last. Basically, they had no chance of making the finals. So they had to scrap teams. And I think New Zealand and Australia have absolutely cut off their nose, spite their face in this one, because having had 2 teams now successfully go to, or what looks like it being relatively successfully go to Europe, I think they're going to lose South Africa entirely to Europe, and they're going to lose that income. And that's going to be the death nail for the Southern Hemisphere rugby.
Yeah, that'll be bigger for South Africa goes. Yeah, You're right. Yeah, it's so they've gone pretty well over there. Well, in terms of how they've fitted into the competition, it hasn't seemed to have caused too many ripples over there. But on Australia's point, I can't see how this has helped them, like in the short term, sort of things at all, with what they've got. And if anything, it's done the same to South Africa as well, with more of their players playing not so abroad, but still in a broad competition. So it's not really helped anyone here, except for maybe Zanzar guy who's sitting there going, like, the monkey clapping the cymbal. That's all I can gather.
Yeah, to be fair to them, the reason they did it was because they were looking forward to the next TV deal and saying, okay, look, things aren't working. It's wrong. It's broken. We need to fix it before the next TV deal, or we'll get or we'll get a very poor TV deal next time around. And so so I can understand why they've done it. By the way, for those of you watching the video, I'm sorry that I'm going very dark, but my light bulb's gone, and it's basically getting towards evening here in New Zealand. So yeah, I understand what the right reasons for change were there, i.e., let's fix things so we get a good TV deal next time. Let's actually look forward and plan ahead. But the wrong execution happened, which so often happens with Zanzar, unfortunately, is that they have the right, is that you can see why they're doing things, but you can't see why they took that particular choice.
Yep, I completely agree with you on that.
So
still reason. That's my other wish. 18 teams back to Super Rugby.
Oh, because most people would say, let's go back to Super 12s. That's when, let's make Super Rugby great again.
Oh, God. Don't start on that.
Is that maybe that's Robert Hole I don't want to go down?
Copyright.
Copyright. Oh, no. I'm going to get sued. So the topic that I actually that came up was Rugby World Cup qualifying. So Canada and Uruguay are going to have a double header on the 27th and the 27th of January and 3rd of February to decide the Americas 2 qualifier, and the loser will go off into the repechage. So any so I've been asked for our insights into those games.
God, I haven't really followed the qualifiers too much. What have we got? Canada
versus Uruguay.
Canada versus Uruguay. Oh, dear. Insights, selections, picks. Okay. I quite like Canada. I think Canada's done quite well. I'd pick them to take it. Reasons being, no real particular reason whatsoever. Yeah, Canada. I think Canada's done quite well. But yeah, no reason. This is my pick.
So Canada are here obviously because they lost to America. Or the USA, sorry, not America. So because the USA have already qualified. And Uruguay have come through having won all their games basically against the other South American countries, which is how they've got here. Actually, I did a little bit of research beforehand. Canada are ranked 21 in the world and Uruguay 18th. So I'm going to go for Uruguay actually in this one. Over 2 legs to do it and get themselves into the Rugby World Cup.
USA qualified suspiciously, I might add.
Oh.
Do you not find that suspicious? Because wasn't that first match a draw? And then the second one, they smashed them by like 40 points. Suspiciously.
Are we talking food poisoning, or are we talking...
Take what you will from that. Very odd match. It looked really close and tight, drawn match. You don't get much closer than that. And then to blow out such massively in that second one was bizarre.
Great coaching, spotting the weaknesses of the opposition, making changes in the following week, and coming back and capitalising. Some
may call it that. Others call it suspicious.
So there's our great insight into the Rugby World Cup qualifying. If you have something we'd like to talk about, you'd like us to talk about, sorry, hopefully we'd like to talk about it too, then do drop me a line at DrivingMaul on Twitter. And you know what? You did a shameless plug and you forgot to actually plug what your YouTube channel is. So if you're going to do a YouTube show on what has or hasn't changed in Super Rugby, where can people find that?
In the description, of course, because you're going to leave it there for me as well. Like Scribs, you find me What do you describe it as? Gaming, opinion stuff, gaming stuff, just a bit of everything, generally sports related as well, and generally rugby related. You find me there, Twitter, same name as well. Come follow along and enjoy, I don't know, trolling people and having some fun.
Cool. And there was another topic actually you wanted to talk. You said, Paul, I'm surprised you haven't put a question down about this, which was Bastareaux's homophobic slur on another player, and it's disgusting, and yeah, it's all wrong, and he shouldn't do it. From Bastareaux's action, you can see he thinks the South African player who's playing for the Italian side has made a comment that is out of order. Listening back to the video or the audio, it sounds like he said, "It's the effing end of the game. Why do we need these swinging arms?" So it doesn't really sound too dodgy, but clearly Bastareaux's heard something different, and yeah, he reacts. So yeah, I expect. So apparently his hearing is on Wednesday in London. So Thursday New Zealand time, we will see what punishment he gets. Personally, I'm expecting 8 weeks plus, but we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But yeah, I'm expecting the book to be thrown at him, and I'm expecting the French to complain about that and say it's a conspiracy by the British teams heading towards the Six Nations.
For one player, there's clutching at straws, but isn't it for them? But you got to say it's not acceptable stuff. No matter who you are, where you play for, who's doing your judiciary stuff. Yeah, that's what microphones on the field has done, isn't it? I mean, 20 years ago you got away with that. No one would have known except the guy who went off complaining about it, and nothing happens. So it's a different world out there. Professional sports. It's you want the money, you got to be the role model as well.
Yeah, nothing happens to you actually in the judiciary side of things, but I think plenty would have happened to you in future games with a few punches and things if you'd been throwing swinging arms around the way he was doing. So no, yeah, yes, you're right. He wouldn't have got dragged up in front and banned from games, but he would have had some rough treatment from other players. I think from doing that. It's definitely out of order. And the reason I say I think the French will complain and say they've been unduly targeted is that a few years ago now, one of their players got a 6-month ban for eye gouging during a European Championship game, or during a Heineken Cup game. Now, eye gouging is something that happened that was pretty prevalent in the French game at the time, and they said, "Hey, you're picking on us." And it's like, what? No, eye gouging is really a bad thing. Don't do it. So yeah, we'll see how it pans out. But I would say I'm expecting quite a big ban to be coming his way. Anything else?
No, I'm pretty much all sorted. Not much is happening this time of year. It's a nice chill time. Get back ready for Super Rugby again. That's probably what my big expectation is going forward. Back to it. Looking forward to Super Rugby this year, actually. Yeah, I'm always looking forward to Super Rugby. So next week we'll chat about the African Conference. The week after we'll chat about the Australian Conference. The week after that we'll do the New Zealand Conference, and the week after that we'll do our Super Rugby preview, and then it's into Super Rugby itself. And if I can get my act together, we are going to supercharge the podcast, and we're going to have a review show every sort of Sunday or Monday of the actual games. We'll have the normal hash rugby chat around 5 hot topics, and then we'll also have a preview show as well, probably on a Thursday night. So look out for those. The preview show may only be for patrons, and so become a patron of DrivingMaul, help support independent rugby punditry from as little as $1 a month. Link down below in the notes, obviously. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you, Steve, for joining me. No worries. Thank you.
Good night, and catch you all next week.